start counting them. And when you look at this table of contents where he's trying to, the nuclear option, the monkey jar tail, credit debt system, what is money, what is inflation, what is credit or debt, what is interest. It's my work that exposed these things, the difference between circulatory inflation and price inflation, and how that's so important for us to understand. What is interest? I'm the original author of an article, Interest is Usury. The word is was all caps and italicized. Interest is usury. How do we know that? We can know it in no other way but by understanding this obfuscation of the currency, and therefrom the fact that any rate of interest which must be reborrowed to maintain a vital circulation, that is 0.0.0.0.1%, is enough interest to multiply any sum of falsified debt to the banking system into terminal debt. And who's ever modeled that? Who's ever done the math? But yours truly, you see. And so here's a book, another book yet, another venture for profit, stealing someone's work, another plagiarist. It's called No Foreclosures by David Chu. And all it does is rob from my work, trying to sell you the solution of mathematically perfected economy in a form that profits David Chu. So in truth, we have Tom Kennedy, David Chu, and Paul Grignon, and Money is Debt is an example of their work. So let's shave this thing down to size. This video is Money is Debt, is 5 parts on YouTube. I'm going to take them part by part. Of course, what we've already said already invalidates the whole purpose of this and any qualifying arguments, because debt is not the issue. Interest is the issue, and the obfuscation of the currency are the issue then, which of course interest is a part of. The initial part of this issue, the obfuscation of the currency, is that a credit, that is our issuance of our promissory obligations to each other, comprise a falsification of a debt, what's not even a debt, to the banking system. And so, of course, then interest multiplies this into terminal indebtedness. For those who follow this so much, I don't mean to be windy here, but you have to understand from the point of view of the world and myself, this. Practically every day, I hear from a number of people how Money as Debt is the authoritative video. This is just not true. So I'm answering to it every day. Well, this might sound windy. In truth, what we really need is an exhaustive invalidation of all these non-facts and irrelevant trivia, which are a money-making scheme which divides us from a fact of singular solution which long preceded it. So, in truth, this effort deserves this repudiation. In truth, there is no answer but to exhaustively invalidate all of the non-truths of this preposterous pretended authority, so that I don't have to do it over and over and over again. If you think this is the truth, that this is the answer to our problems, that money is a debt, I'm sorry. You're wrong. There's no math. There's no justification of the idea. There's no proof of the idea. And in fact, the idea is taken from preposterously from my parable of perfect economy, from one of 2 examples in it, and the example that it was taken from is the wrong example, an example that was provided as a vehicle of teaching, after I'd explained how to fund money or government without even taxation, the audience would just be in, they would just think this was the most fabulous thing they ever heard. And then I would say, now what's wrong with this story? And I would explain to them why and how you cannot simply spend money into circulation. Since I removed those explanations largely from my parable of perfect economy, and in truth millions of web pages have since plagiarized that story as if it is actual history, and are even citing it against me as proof that Benjamin Franklin had already perfected economy by my very words issued through his fictional mouth. We have severe issues here, and they all arise in plagiarism. Why did I remove those explanations? Because Jacques Jaquerin plagiarized my parable in, 1994? From the first page of his debt virus. And he wrote me before that. He didn't say he was going to write a book like these other plagiarists are writing here. He wrote me before it. He had a few questions, So what we have is 15 years of plagiarism in well-known book after well-known book, which presume upon themselves to pretend the authority of unraveling at least some permutation of this obfuscation of the currency without ever mentioning that I exist, because if that's done, it exposes the borrowings, the plagiarism, the stealing of intellectual property for profit. So that's what we have here. In truth, then, there's no other way to deal with this than to conclusively dismiss it forever. And how do we do that? We examine it piece by piece for what's true here, what's original, what the real authority before us is, so that we can get this issue straight amongst ourselves. So in truth, while the learned and those who've already mastered the math of this simple issue already understand that where this is going is a complete trouncing of this preposterous pretended authority in money as debt. They might want to follow along as well, because we're going to deal with not every detail, many details, so that it's clearly understood that this isn't the issue. We've already explained that well enough, but we'll go through the video here and just illuminate ourselves as to what should be our rightful perspective of all this. Where does it lead? Does it in fact lead us to evaluate the propositions at hand? In fact, I give no rights. I confer no rights to use my material for profit, especially in such a way where the wrong deduction is made converse to the deductions which comprise mathematically perfected economy, without even disproving the work that this person is stealing from, which original work, of course, from its very inception, was a proof of singular solution. Simple arithmetic amounts to a fact of one and one only solution to each of our three categoric faults. Now, on the one hand, any truly credible authority diverging at all from that, especially after their work is based on stealing from it, and particularly from an assumption that interest is destructive in ways which we all just somehow understand, even though it doesn't address that because it's trying to present the contrary. Blame it on the fact that money is a debt, has always been a debt in terms of monetizing promissory obligations, which are the only reasonable means of monetizing our production. Why? Because any tokenization at all requires associating an obligation to pay and therefore to retire principal from circulation, or we cannot solve inflation. Moreover, there's nothing wrong with that association of an obligation to pay for the property as you consume of it, because that's exactly what should happen. Whether you pay for it with cash only denies the commerce or the economy of sufficient currency to monetize its commerce. So if the cash exists, you won't issue further cash. If it doesn't exist, then you monetize it because you need something to tokenize this obligation to pay for principal only. You're not paying for any more. It's nothing else can save you, not even spending money into circulation, because you're at least going to pay it in interest, which this Diddy borrows from me as well. This guy's never done the math. He doesn't even explain it. He just borrows it from my work. So let's get into this nasty business of having to deal with yet another plagiarist who's got millions of people thinking that money cannot be a debt somehow. Of course, we've provided in the first 7 minutes the intellectual property which exposes the obfuscation of the currency, which is the real issue here. But as this slow-moving, hour-long, five-part, well, it's almost an hour, five-part Money is Debt video begins, he flashes a number of quotes at us, which, of course, John Kenneth Galbraith, the process by which banks create money is so simple that the mind is repelled. But John Kenneth Galbraith himself didn't expose this obfuscation of the currency. Yes, to understand, to witness, this working is an incredible thing in and of itself. But to reduce it to the actual obfuscation isn't to say that a process by which banks create money. This is an obfuscation. It's a sleight of hand. It's an ancient ruse. It's a crime. It isn't just a process by which banks create money as if it's legitimate, even though it's simple and repulsive, as Galbraith says. But what is an artist or a friend of Tommy Usury doing, stumbling across these quotes, and providing them in a way which competes with the proposition that the obfuscation of the currency and interest are the issues, you see. So they provide a tremendous number of quotes, which, most of them are on my pages, have been for many years. And this really amounts to nothing. Where they're going with this is that money as a debt is the issue. Money has to be spent into circulation. And none of these quotes concur with that idea. They imply that something is wrong, but just what is wrong is not demonstrated here. And of course, it is demonstrated in the work that has been stolen from here to assume that interest isn't even an issue. It's already been invalidated. It's been disproven, that's repulsive, unjustifiable, unsustainable. So we'll just go on beyond that and say that money is as a debt is a further issue, and it has to be spent into circulation without a single argument why or how. Or that is, I should say, without a single qualifiable argument how, because of course a debt equal to the principal imposes no injury or multiplication of artificial falsified indebtedness whatsoever. Again, it's interest which causes terminal falsified indebtedness. Our little ditty starts out then with a